Keep watching Some TV.
Good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on Some TV, the pulse of the nation. I am Abraham Joda, your host, and we'll be exploring the latest news, trends, and insights that shape our economy, from market analysis to industry updates. We'll bring you the stories that matter. Join the conversation and stay informed with Business Daily on Some TV. Watch on Facebook at Some TV and on YouTube at Some TV Live. Here are some of the headlines. Nigeria's foreign investment soared to two-year high. Nigerian Finance Minister leads delegation to 2025 IMF spring meetings amid global trade concerns. Federal government collects 6.9 billion naira in mining fees in Q1 2025. Credit to private sector hit 76.27 trillion in March 2025. Now the news in full. Foreign investment into the Nigerian economy have surged to its highest level in at least 2 years, driven by favorable returns buoyed by the Central Bank of Nigeria's jumbo rate hikes aimed at lowering capital. According to the CBN's monthly economic report for January, capital inflows into the economy jumped from $0.33 billion in January 2024 to $2.06 billion in the corresponding month of 2025, marking a 524.24% increase in 1 year. The CBN attributed the increase in capital inflow to favorable returns in the domestic financial markets. Portfolio investment inflows constituted 89.60% of the total inflows, while other investment and direct investment accounted for 7.01% and 3.39%, respectively. The banking sector was the highest recipient of foreign capital, accounting for 42.22% of total inflows, followed by the financing sector, 44.32%. Despite the surge in foreign investment, capital outflows also increased in January 2025, driven by higher loans repayments and capital reversals. According to the CBN, capital outflow rose to $1.20 billion from $1.06 billion in the preceding month, as loan repayments and capital reversal increased by 27.45% and 3.85% respectively. Data center operators have committed to investing at least $630 million in expanding capacity as internet consumption soared amidst rising demand for local cloud. Nigeria's average monthly internet usage has surged by 699.79% to 1,030.6 terabytes in January 2025, driven by increased adoption of digital services, especially streaming and social media platforms. This has motivated more major telecom operators like MTN Nigeria and Airtel to ramp up data center investments. Airtel broke ground on a hyperscale data center in Lagos in March 2024, while MTN Nigeria unveiled plans to build a 1,500 rack Tier 4 data center to support rising data needs. Other operators, including Equinix, Rack Center, and Open Access Data Centers, have also launched expansion projects. Equinix plans to spend $140 million expanding its facilities across southern Nigeria, while OADC is investing $240 million to expand its Lagos data center to 24 megawatts by 2025. The investment aims to close at least $600 million data center gap in the country. Currently, Nigeria has 16 data centers, but it still trails African countries such as South Africa and Kenya. The growing demand for AI, high-performance computing, and low-latency services is also driving the need for more data centers. According to industry experts, Nigeria is moving in the right direction and the demand for data centers is growing. The foreign exchange crunch in Nigeria has led to a significant increase in local raw material sourcing by manufacturers. According to review, MEN reported that local raw materials utilization in the manufacturing sector rose to an average of 57.1% in 2024 from 52.0% in 2023, signifying a 5.1% increase. The FX scarcity has forced manufacturers to seek alternative sources of raw materials, minimizing costs and optimizing value. This development is expected to boost local production and reduce dependence on imported goods. However, manufacturing investments shrank by 35.3%, indicating a challenging business environment. The shift towards local sourcing is a positive trend for the Nigerian economy, and policymakers are likely to encourage this development to promote economic growth and reduce reliance on foreign exchange. As the country navigates economic, will be crucial in driving growth and development. The Nigerian Euro bond market has taken a positive turn, ending its 7-week bearish run as yields declined following a week of wide swings. According to data from Bloomberg, the average yield on Nigeria Eurobond dipped to 10.58% last week from 11.12% the previous week. Although yields remain elevated, the decline is a welcome relief for investors. Analysts at Meristem Securities attribute the decline to buying interest resurfacing across the curve as investors took advantage of attractive price levels. The buying interest suggests that investors are optimistic about the market's prospects despite the lingering uncertainties. The development is a positive signal for Nigeria's economy, which has been grappling with various challenges. The decline in Eurobond yields could also boost investor confidence and attract more foreign investment into the country. Nigeria's Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Wale Edun, is leading the country's delegation to the 2025 International Monetary Fund Springs meeting in Washington, D.C. The high-profile gathering brings together finance ministers, central bank governors, and key economic stakeholders from 190 countries to discuss pressing global financial challenges. The meetings aim to foster macroeconomic stability, provide policy advice, and assist nations facing balance of payment challenges. The Nigerian delegations feature senior officials from the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), chief executive officers of financial institutions, and representatives from the private sector, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations. Key discussions at the meetings will include addressing trade and economic resilience, particularly in light of the U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping import tariffs, which have affected trade relations globally. The meeting will also focus on efforts to build a more resilient global economy, poverty eradication initiatives, and reforming the global financial architecture to better support developing countries. The IMF will release its World Economic Outlook and Global Financial Stability Report, providing insights into financial trends and policy adjustments required to stabilize economies. Nigeria's participation aims to advance policies that safeguard economic stability, improve financial regulations, and enhance trade resilience. Experts in Nigeria's oil and gas sector have emphasized the need for the government to back ongoing reforms with incentives to attract investors. According to Dr. Ogo Okiti, Managing Director of Africa's Business Convention, aligning oil and gas reforms with national goals, providing incentives, fixing foreign exchange constraints, and creating real sector growth especially in gas, are crucial to attracting serious investment. Dr. Ayodele Oni, partner at Bloomberg LP, also stressed the importance of predictability in Nigeria's legal and regulatory environment, highlighting the need for the right people to execute policies effectively and for regulatory bodies and the judiciary to work together to provide a stable environment for investment. The expert comments were made during the public presentation of the 2025 Investor Perception Survey conducted by Arbites Conferences in collaboration with Good Governance Africa. The survey revealed a cautious optimism driven by recent reforms, including the Petroleum Industrial Act and executive orders, but tempered by concerns over implementation delays, regulatory inefficiencies, and persistent structural challenges. Mr. Toyin Akinshaw, publisher of Africa Oil and Gas Report, noted that stakeholders remain reserved in their optimism, urging stakeholders to communicate success stories more strategically to reshape international investor perception. The survey's findings highlight the need for the government to prioritize policy alignment with broader national development objectives, interagency coordination, and execution to restore investor confidence. Dr. Abimbola Agboluaje, founder of Arbites Conferences, noted that respondents' perceptions are shaped by historical experiences with past reform efforts and the current design and implementation progress of the PIA and executive orders. The survey serves as a prelude to upcoming event License to Energy series scheduled for September 2025. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Dele Alake, has announced that the federal government collected $6.9 billion in mining fees across Nigeria in the first quarter of 2025. Alake disclosed this via his official X page, attributing the achievement to dedicated efforts to raise awareness and attract investors to Nigeria's vibrant mining industry. According to him, the Mining Cadastral Office processed 955 applications for title grants, approving 867 applications, including 512 exploration licenses, 295 small-scale mining leases, 60 quarry leases, and 5 mining leases. The minister highlighted several initiatives underway to boost the mining sector, including the establishment of the Nigerian Solid Minerals Corporation, which will serve as a special purpose vehicle to elevate Nigeria into a global mining arena. The corporation will allow Nigerians to invest through a public offering. International partnerships are also being explored with agreements signed with France, Western Australia, Britain, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa to enhance Nigeria's geological capacity and attract investment. The minister emphasized the impact of the value addition policy, which has bolstered local beneficiation and positioned Nigeria as a leader in the African mining landscape. As chair of the African Mineral Strategy Group, Alake aims to draw more investment to Africa and Nigeria. With collaboration across the board, he assured that the resilience and competitive mining sector for Nigeria is underway. The nation's underdeveloped mining sector currently contributes less than 1% to its gross domestic product. The Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has reported that credit to the private sector stood at 76.27 trillion in March 2025, reflecting a marginal increase of 0.03 from the 76.25 trillion recorded in February 2025. However, the figure still traces the 77.38 trillion recorded in January 2025, indicating a broader trend of credit tightening amid prevailing economic conditions. The decline from January to March 2025 represents a cumulative drop of 1.11 trillion naira, highlighting the cautious stance adopted by financial institutions in response to evolving macroeconomic dynamics. The slow credit growth in the private sector may reflect concerns about elevated non-performing loans, weak consumer demands, and a challenging business environment that has made banks more risk averse. According to CBN's money and credit statistics, the bulk of the credit allocation continues to flow into the manufacturing, general commerce, and oil and gas sector. Economic analysts attribute the tepid credit expansion to both demand and supply side constraints, including high interest rates and tightening lending criteria. The decline in credit to the private sector could weigh on investment, job creation, and overall GDP growth, especially in a country where the private sector accounts for a large share of economic activity. Stakeholders in the financial sector are calling for targeted reforms to improve access to credit for productive sectors and MSMEs, including credit guarantees, regulatory incentives, and improved risk-sharing frameworks. The federal government has introduced more intervention schemes, but their impact appears limited in the face of broader monetary tightening. The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPPE, has cautioned that the proposed Raw Material Research and Development Council bill currently before the National Assembly could have damaging consequences for Nigerian export-driven sectors and struggling manufacturers. The bill mandates that all primary product export must carry at least 30% local value addition and restrict manufacturers from importing raw materials deemed available in sufficient local quantity. CPPE Director and CEO Dr. Muda Yusuf warned that the bill, though well-intentioned, oversimplifies the country's complex industrial realities and risks harming the very sectors it aims to protect. The CPPE warned that if the bill is passed, it could jeopardize thousands of jobs within Nigerian non-oil export supply chain, particularly affecting exporters of critical commodities like cocoa, cashew nuts, gum arabic, ginger, sesame seeds, and shea butter. Dr. Yusuf pointed out that even crude oil, which dominates Nigeria's export basket, only recently began to experience local refining after years of dependency on foreign processors. The CPPE criticized the bill for being vague and lacking operational clarity and warned that it will only open new avenues for regulatory capture and corruption. The CPPE has urged the National Assembly to discontinue the deliberations on the proposed RMRDC bill, warning that its provisions fall outside the scope of what should be legislated. Instead of venturing into trade policy, the CPPE advised that the RMRDC should return to its core function of supporting manufacturers through research that enables cost-effective access to raw materials. The organization argued that the core issues confronting local manufacturing and agro-processing are high production costs, poor infrastructure, multiple taxation, and raw material availability. A recent PwC report has revealed that 448,400 Nigerian immigrants will be directly impacted if the U.S. government enforces stricter immigration policies in 2025. The report noted that Nigerians accounted for 16.3% of the total African-born population in the U.S. as of 2022, making them the largest group of African migrants in the country. According to PwC, African-born immigrants in the U.S. total 2.75 million in 2022, with Nigeria leading with 448,500 migrants, followed by Ethiopia, Egypt, and Ghana. The reports projected that tighter immigration rules in 2025 could significantly reduce the inflows of African migrants and affect the volume of remittances sent back to the continent. The Central Bank of Nigeria disclosed that personal remittance inflows from the Nigerian diaspora rose to $20.93 billion in 2024, reflecting an 8.9% increase year-on-year. The potential impact of stricter immigration policy on remittance flow could have significant implications for Nigeria's economy. The PwC report comes amid concern that the return of Donald Trump to office could lead to the reinstatement of strict immigration policies including travel bans and restrictions on student visas. During his first term, Trump's administration imposed travel bans on Nigeria and other countries, citing national security concerns, causing significant delay in processing visas for Nigerians. The potential reintroduction of such policies have raised apprehension among the Nigerian diaspora in the U.S. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has revealed that Nigeria's nominal manufacturing output surged by 34.9% to 33.43 trillion in the second half of 2024, primarily driven by mounting inflationary pressures and rising domestic prices. According to MAN Director General Segun Ajayi Kadri, the sector's real manufacturing output increased modestly by 1.7% year-on-year to 7.78 trillion, driven by increased activities in the motor vehicles and miscellaneous assembly, non-metallic mineral products, and electrical electronics sectors. Despite the growth, the sector faced persistent challenges, including rising production costs, weak consumer demand, and ongoing price volatility, resulting in a 3.1% decline in real output on a second-half basis. Local sourcing of raw materials showed notable improvement, rising from 52.0% in 2023 to 57.1% in 2024, driven by foreign exchange scarcity, high cost of imported inputs, and targeted government incentives. However, inventory of unsold finished goods rose by 87.5% to 2.14 trillion, attributed to sluggish consumer demand, inflationary pressures, and high production costs. The report also highlighted concerns over high energy costs, with manufacturers' total expenditure on alternative energy climbing to 1.11 trillion, a 42.3% rise from 781.68 billion in 2023. Average lending rates from commercial banks to manufacturers spiked to 35.5% in 2024, pushing total finance across to 1.3 trillion. Man urged the government to accelerate the implementation of manufacturing-friendly reforms, create a more predictable business environment, and address policy instability, forest liquidity, energy cost reforms, and interest rate moderation to sustain the total manufacturing growth. The total value of currency outside the Nigerian banking system rose to 4.6 trillion in March 2025, accounting for 91.9% of the 500 trillion in total currency in circulation during the period. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria's latest money and credit statistics, the country's sustained dependence on physical cash persists despite the government's cashless policy push. This marks a significant increase compared to the same period in 2024, when 3.63 trillion was held outside banks out of 3.87 trillion in circulation. The March data highlights a persistent trend. Nigerians continue to favor physical cash over banking channels. The proportion of currency outside the banking system climbed to 91.9%, the highest level in 5 months. The continued dominance of cash suggests deep-rooted behavioral and structural reliance on currency for transactions, particularly within the informal economy. Inflationary pressures, limited digital literacy, poor network infrastructure, and lack of trust in banking platforms contribute to the preference for cash. The high volume of unbanked currency presents a growing challenge for monetary policy implementation, weakening the effectiveness of traditional liquidity management tools. The CBN committee, scheduled to meet on May 19 and 20, 2025, will have to grapple with this issue. Analysts expect a more hawkish stance in May, given the accelerating inflation and record levels of currency outside banks. The AP banks may need to consider more aggressive measures to mop up liquidity or reintroduce controls to push more cash into the banking sector. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) has clarified that a special Control Unit Against Money Laundering certificate does not imply clearance to lawfully operate in Nigeria. This statement comes amid the collapse of the fraudulent cryptocurrency investment scheme known as CBEX. The EFCC explained that registration under SCUML is a statutory requirement for designated non-financial businesses and professions in Nigeria. In line with the country's anti-money laundering, control of financing terrorism regime, the EFCC emphasized that it is not a clearinghouse or regulatory authority for online businesses, but rather an agency committed to ensuring justice for victims of financial fraud. The anti-graft agency stressed that financial fraud of any kind falls within its remit. The clarification comes after the Security and Exchange Commission stated that it did not grant registration to Crypto Bridge Exchange or its affiliates to operate in Nigeria. The CBEX scheme, operated by a group of foreign nationals in partnership with Nigerian collaborators, collapsed recently, leaving thousands of investors stranded and unable to access their funds. The platform has promised 100% return within 30 days through online trading, but restricted withdrawals and eventually shut out its subscribers. The EFCC has vowed to recover Nigerians' lost investment through collaboration with Interpol and other international agencies. The federal government has denied reports claiming it has finalized a long-term concession agreement for the Akanu Ibiam International Airport in Enugu. In a statement signed by Tunde Moshood, Special Advisor on Media and Communication to the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, the ministry described the claims as baseless and inaccurate. The government confirmed that proposals for the concession of the 5 major airports, including Enugu, are under review, but no agreement or concession duration has been approved. The ministry explained that the process is ongoing and subject to review by key stakeholders, including the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC, and the Federal Executive Council. Various proposals with differing terms have been submitted, but none has received final approval. The ministry's response may be linked to online reports claiming an 80-year concession has been approved for the Enugu International Airport, an assertion that the government has now firmly debunked. The ministry clarified that the airport concession initiative is not new, but rather a continuation of efforts by previous government to address the financial strain on the aviation sectors. Many airports in Nigeria operate at a loss and require monthly subsidies from the federal government to stay afloat. The concession strategy aims to help this facility meet and sustain international standards through private sector participation. The ministry reaffirmed its commitment to a transparent, accountable, and nationally beneficial framework for all concessions decisions. That is the end of Business Daily for today. But before we go, here is a recap of the major headline. Nigeria foreign investment soared to 2-year high. Nigerian Finance Minister leads delegation to 2025 IMF Spring meeting amid global trade concerns. Federal government collects 6.9 billion in mining fees in Q1 2025. Credit to private sector hit 76.27 trillion in March 2025.